Hello, people. Much of our rhetoric, I find, is clouded by fear, and this fear is justified. But at times, this fear takes over our lives. I believe it is fear, and not indifference, that many people preach. And that difference in the teachings is noted as how people choose to live their lives. This fear and lack of tolerance for humane shortcomings brings forward hate. With hate, one man can live a very long time, but he is never free. I mean, we're partly at fault. We dish out truths, we dish out observations, and we dish out facts and what we are to expect of you. We're all humans. If the negatives are shown time and time again, then fear will kick in. A man will resort to hiding away in his own shadow so as to avoid getting hurt. When anything and everything is a potential source for pain and hurt, where to go? Who to trust? Where will it ever be safe for me? We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light. Plato. What has changed? Since you entered this community, what has changed other than you have been talked to time and time again by people expressing their worries about your life, about your well-being, and outlining the dangers in front of you? For a lot of you, it might have been a much-needed education which should have otherwise been offered at home, but be it for bad luck or otherwise, you were not privileged to information that fathers, for instance, may have offered you. But be it so, the information was provided by others who at the time were unknown to you, and that information knocked you down on your knees and paralyzed you. If a woman can claim a rape falsely, what can become of me if I engage with females? If a man can be accused of sexual harassment when no wrongdoing has occurred, how can I trust myself to work in a female-infested environment? If women will claim the victim card at all points, what can I do if the same woman abuses me? These are all great questions, and all have their merits. And of course, as you can imagine, I don't have any answers to all these questions. I do not possess any knowledge that can help people outside the knowledge that people have already shared. Be careful, keep your messages, keep your interactions at work professional, don't shit where you eat, and all that. That's your part. That's what you can do if you are to engage in any way with females. But if you don't, then, well, there is no risk or harm that can come to you. Before I address this point and my utter disagreement with it, I want to ask you the following question. At present, right now, a year, 2 years, 3 years perhaps, or 4 years or so, after you have digested the MGTOW red pill, what has changed? Not in yourselves, but what has actually changed in the outside world? I mean, lots of things have occurred. Elections in certain countries, certain people are now rotting dead, some new were born, and life kept moving forward. But significant events as to the behavior of females towards men have not occurred. Sure, certain feminists are getting more aggressive, and hopefully we are to expect more bitch slaps such as the one that Thunderfoot served Laughing Witch recently, but with regards to that, not many things have indeed changed. I would presume that since the majority of you are not streaming my videos from prison, and you're listening to me right now in the sanctity of your own homes and cell phones, that the majority of you have not been attacked that aggressively by females as of yet. I mean, I'm well aware that many of you came to the community due to the evil actions of a certain female, that we will of course talk about again, I'm sure, as the topic tends to go around in circles. But the majority of you are indeed here. You have your health, hopefully, and you're awake. Some of you suffered certain hardships, others suffered minor, but the majority of you would have escaped, such as myself, pretty much unscathed. So at present, your present version of self is a person finding himself in this situation and filled with knowledge about the nature of women, the gynocentric society, the disposability of men, and much more that was produced with tedious and significant work by many content producers. I am of course talking about Barbarossa's work, Stardusk's work, and Spetsnaz's work, along with many others, some of whom are a bit more recent. However, what were the primary motivations of these men for creating such a content? And I know I'm putting words in their mouths and they can disagree with me on this if they wish to, but I believe their motivations was to wake you up and inform you. Not just the MGTOW community, but men in general. If the situation is as it is, men needed to be informed as to the truth of gender relations, to the truth of female nature, to the truth of male nature, and to the exploitation of men, as well as to the dangers that modern feminism poses on men in general. Many of them have provided answers and inspiring messages to you guys as to the importance and greatness of men, the wonders of the world, scientific and whatnot, that were created primarily by men, and they're still created by men. They spoke about the vastness of human and in particular male emotion, how we must claim our right to feel and experience things as men. What may be perceived as weakness is not the equivalent of a feminine attribute but a unique male emotion, distinguishable and experienced differently by a male brain, which now sits between your ears. Personally, I hope the information would wake you up, as it did with me, shake you, make you feel like hell, but then you would bounce back, see for yourselves that you still stand, and you would own the reality that was given to you as a gift. I still think of it as a gift, but many of you are still pondering if you wanted this gift in the first place. Many of you are paralyzed by the information, and many of you seem to fear the world that may come striking when you least expect it. Only recently I was speaking to a man privately, and he was explaining to me in a conversation how despite all of his degrees and achievements, he just can't stand being in the same room with females. He can't stand them at all. He can't be with them, and that he's scared of them. That man wasn't weak. He knew he had no reason to fear a physically weaker female one-on-one. But he understood the risks all too well, and fear had him paralyzed. He wanted to move but had to stay still. And it is a strange thing how fear paralyzes your muscles, but yet you still get angry at the world for the paralysis that an inner response has provided for you. In the past few years, not many things have changed. Perhaps you changed inside of you, perhaps you're finding an excuse in the knowledge for staying still. Perhaps you're scared of females, perhaps you hate them, perhaps you're doing what you would call a risk assessment. But if it's paralyzing you, is it really working? Perhaps you get angry at other men over their actions, for not agreeing with yours, for being ethnocentric, etc. Perhaps you feel simply hurt and no one could possibly understand you. Perhaps you're simply scared. I know that you guys will hate me for even suggesting that, but it's true. Fear paralyzes people. It creates narratives. It forms your opinions. Nothing is stronger than fear, than your will to live. But you're not hungry. That's catered for. You need no shelter, as you have a home. How can your will to live exceed your deepest fears? That is a question that you need to ask yourselves. I believe a life not lived free is not worth living. But again, each person's definition of freedom varies. So ask yourself how best to proceed. Blame not the information, nor the men giving you that information. Blame not the excess digging that many might do into the depths of understanding ourselves, and women for that matter. It's time to blame you, just that tiny little bit, for not adjusting. And before you come back to me with explanations and rationales as to why you don't want to do this or can't do that. I'm a doctor. I have been in the community for some time. I know my personal weaknesses and afflictions, and I'm also working through them. I know that for everything, there is a reason. Don't let that reason become an excuse in the few days, the months, and the years that will follow. Find your reason to live. Find it within you to listen to the information and understand that not many things have changed. And though you have a right to feel scared and feel paralyzed, that's all you are, scared. And fear, well, If you don't let it fester, it simply goes. Knowledge is a gift. Knowledge can bring fear, but even then, that knowledge is still a gift you can use to prepare you. So, turn your knowledge into power and be free. Good night and good day, wherever you are.